Action.
Welcome to the Tibet Center, here at 151 West 30th Street, 3rd floor. So we'll begin by reciting the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West, which you'll find in the FAQ section scrolling down. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddha's teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the Victorious One's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we hope to the wish. Now the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vekbok, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that Samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering with the world, with its gods, humans, asuras and gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay. So, let's do one rosary of Om Mani Padme Hum. And so imagine, develop within yourself the wish to remove the suffering of others. So think about that as you recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum. So, reciting Om Mani Padme Hum is good. It, on some level, must have some effect on us. The fact that we are devoting the effort to reciting this mantra, which is the mantra of compassion. But thinking about compassion, thinking about this wish to remove the suffering of others, I'm quite sure is more potent, is more powerful than the mere recitation of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. So if we can mix the two together, that's even better. Okay, so we are discussing Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And we have reached page 124. Okay. Taking a stance. So, what is taking a stance? So here we've been discussing the afflictive emotions. These emotions such as attachment, such as aversion, such as anger, such as jealousy, such as pride. And we've been discussing how they harm us. They cause us to suffer. They disrupt our peace of mind. They make the people around us unhappy, but mainly they make us unhappy. And they also cause us to engage in these actions more, these mental actions more. So, taking a stance is determining to do something about them. I think, all right, so this first paragraph is, in order to go about dealing with these destructive emotions, it is first of all necessary to adopt a general attitude or stance towards them, a stance of opposition. You have the book on there? So this stance of opposition is the essence of spiritual practice. I mean, this is what it's all about. This right here on, you have it. You have it? This stance of opposition is really what we're coming here for. And I put myself, how are you? What brings us to the Tibet Center, what initially brought me here, and what makes me come back and made me devote my life to this, is working at developing this stance of opposition. This is what it's all about. And I say this with as much sort of force as I can, because I think that we have to really collect ourselves to devote ourselves to opposing these afflictive emotions. Such a stance involves recognizing that the law of opposition, whereby positives cancel out or neutralize negatives, applies not just to the physical world, but also to our inner or mental world. In the great wisdom traditions, we find clear lessons both on the mental states that are to be tackled and on the need to cultivate and deploy their antidotes. If no opposing force exists for our destructive emotions, then there's nothing we can do about them. However, if opposite positive forces do exist, then they can become powerful antidotes. For example, the main antidote to anger is forbearance or patience. For greed, it is contentment. For fear is courage. And for doubt is understanding. Anything to say?
Sounds good.
Actually, this reminds me, I was just to entertain myself on the way here. I was waiting for the train, and I was reading from, there is a novel, Walter Gilbert Clark, The Oxbow Incident, which is about actually a lynching in the West. And there's a great deal of the first part of it has to do with the opposition of one person, the storekeeper, who was trying to convince these people not to go off and do this thing that was, it was just wrong. And if you think about it, then this was, and he had a very difficult time doing it, and he was threatened. you know, like the angry people. And to a certain extent, they listened to him. Unfortunately, in the end, he was not able to prevail. But there was this spirit of opposition. And that he, you know, even though it seemed hopeless, really, and because, you know, there were 20, 30 people really angry and about to go off and share their anger, actually, and egg each other on to do this thing, but this one person stood up to it, or tried to, and even though he wasn't successful, I think that was, you know, a very important kind of point of the novel.
So, yeah, go ahead.
How did he attempt to dissuade these people to get rid of their anger? I mean, what approach did he use?
Well, he used various things, but at one point he became very angry. And he said, well, that's a social, exactly the term that he used, but that is, it's against all kinds of justice.
What's against all kind of justice?
To go off and
Lynch someone.
yeah, and yes, exactly, and to take the law into your own hands, and but, you know, and I think he's trying to argue that it's not even, it's questionable, it's even desirable to punish somebody for like these things, but it certainly should be done. In other words, that the law must decide, I guess was his point. But anyway, I wasn't so much concerned about his particular justification, but the fact that he opposed this.
So the story, what we have to do is apply this to ourselves, because we all have the tendency to want to go out there and act non-virtuously, selfishly, whatever, which is, you know, let's say, like wishing to, take the law into our own hands or whatever. And that's what anger is. That's what these sort of eruptions of emotions. And here what we're talking about is opposing them within ourselves. And this is, we're going to get to the techniques that His Holiness just gives us, but it's very difficult, because somehow we feel that the problem exists out there, and we feel that we are justified in dealing with that problem by our eruption of anger, our eruption of whatever the emotion is that overwhelms us. So to hold ourselves back demands, initially this stance of opposition, but it also demands a technique, a process, a preparation, a development of the muscles of restraint that are necessary to actually refrain from doing it. That's what we're discussing.
I think even in terms of self-restraint, I mean, sometimes in the morning I wake up and I have to take care of that. And so I blame, there's some kind of problem, something that's mixed up that's going to require like making calls and this huge fuss, and then I don't want to deal with it, and then so I don't want to wake up, and then maybe I'll just have a beer and just forget about it, and but I have to find myself, I'm trying to resist that, and tell myself don't do that. That's like just, it's not going to solve anything. It's not good for you, and especially not good for me because it's like it brings about this kind of self-indulgence, and you have to build up your resistance against your bad impulses.
Yes. And I think that that's what, on some level, that's what the nitty-gritty of spiritual self-discipline is. We have sort of notions of metaphysical qualities to the spiritual path. It's simply working at refraining from indulging attachment, aversion, anger, those basic laziness. You said apathy?
Well,
You
that's
didn't-
what I described. Yeah, I want to just say, "Oh, just forget it all." Don't even deal with it.
So a key element in generating an effective stance of opposition toward negative emotions is a deep recognition of their destructive nature and a conviction that we both can and should strive to overcome them. Now this is this is not something that we can do on the spur of the moment. It's something that we have to really train in. And train means in the morning. Is there a difference between opposing negative emotions versus repressing authentic human needs and feelings? Is there a difference between opposing, or I'll pose this to everyone, is there a difference between opposing negative emotions, which is what I think we've been discussing so far, versus repressing authentic human needs and feelings? So I don't think we're talking about repressing human needs. We may be talking about repressing, if we have negative thoughts about something, the difference between opposing and repressing, I think you could use either. I don't know, what are your thoughts? Is there a difference between opposing negative emotions versus repressing authentic human needs and feelings? Repressing authentic human needs and feelings, I think, is a negative, is not so healthy, can lead to all sorts of problems.
Isn't that how we develop forbearance?
Oppressing authentic human needs and feelings. Here the suggestion is that these human needs and feelings are valid needs. They're not.
Of course, we're all human. That's what we get. Of course they're valid human needs.
So it's a thin line between the two. Can we say that to Matt Casey, who has written in?
You would have to find the word.
No.
What's your experience?
Well, I do think that we begin by feeling that a lot of these human needs are human needs and feelings, and that, our way of life, our way of, modern life is to indulge them. That's what we do. That's how we lead our lives. And then when we begin to realize that the indulging of those, let's say, more crass human needs leads to unhappiness, dissatisfaction, etc., we begin to work at developing self-discipline with the idea of attaining a more steady and happy state. I
Right,
think
because
that's
didn't
what-
we talk about things that are nourishing and good, right? Good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. That's the Dharma, right, what it teaches.
So opposing here negative emotions, what makes an emotion negative is that it harms those around us, it harms us, and it also causes us to more easily engage in the emotion in the future. So I think that I would say that spiritual work is a process of working on those human needs and feelings and eventually arriving at a point where we are recognizing and opposing the more negative aspects in order to attain a sort of calmer.
It's also a little hard to answer that to me because like authentic human needs and feelings is it's a little bit open-ended. Like I'm not sure, you know what I mean? Like it'd be easier to answer if there was a specific example. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because but I think, like let's say for example that what they mean, I kind of take that when I heard it is I took it to mean almost like, what if you're in like a codependent, like a situation where someone's manipulating you or walking all over you, like you should maybe, I think, in Dharma teachings that I've heard, it's like you should not subject yourself to what do they call it, foolish people, like you're not supposed to just let yourself be walked all over by someone who is, so like in that case, if you have this authentic like need to kind of stand up to that, let's say, like an abusive boss or something, you should do what you need to do. But you're not doing it with a selfish motivation, right? I think that's the key. So you can meet your own human needs and have feelings and express them, but you need to do it in a way that's not. You have to try to find out if you're doing it in a selfish way and find the right balance. I think that's what I would say.
I don't actually interpret it quite that way. To me, it sounded the very question to oppose suppressing negative emotions and then opposing that to genuine human needs and emotions. It almost sounds to me, it's like someone's fear of Puritanism, and that morality has to do with suppressing emotions and needs. And it seems to me rather that, I guess one way of, getting out of books, resolving things is that we do have needs and emotions, but to observe whether these needs, by exercising our needs, or whether they are being harmful to ourselves and to everyone else around us or not. And then if they are, then they have to be reined in, and otherwise, it's not that the needs or the emotions, I guess you can say, though, it's not even a point of whether they're legitimate or not, because I guess they exist anyway. And actually, when you said authentic, to me, that's very interesting, because are they really, are they actually authentic, or are they a figment that, that you've been goaded on or something, and that you've been convinced that you feel this way, maybe by advertising, I don't know.
So authentic is here. Authentic is in.
What?
Authentic is what was in the original statement.
Okay.
So the idea here is that these human needs and feelings have an authenticity. They're valid. And I think even that is questionable.
Yeah, well, I believe I was trying to say that whether they are really our feelings, or whether that's been something that we've convinced to believe that we have these feelings. And that's what I mean, by advertising or by peer group pressure. And so, I don't.
But I do agree that this is not saying that when, we shouldn't stand up to, what would you call it?
Somewhere it says foolish people in some text. That you shouldn't subject yourself to, if you're around foolish people, that you shouldn't kind of get yourself out of that situation.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you don't have compassion for them. You can still have compassion for them, but you also, and that's I think codependent is the buzz. I hate that term kind of because it feels like such a cliched term. But I think a lot of people are in a codependent situation in their friendships or family relationships and they don't realize it. You know what I mean? So it's challenging.
So, we shall continue. So, a key element in generating an effective stance of opposition towards negative emotions is a deep recognition of their destructive nature and a conviction that we both can and should strive to overcome them. So that's really that's the stance of opposition that we're talking about. And I think that the reason that this is sort of being drummed into us is that these negative emotions only begin to diminish. We only develop any effect over them by the effort that we put into it. It is in respect to that effort that they diminish. This conviction can then serve as the basis for an enduring resolve to tackle them. So here we're not even getting into the technique for tackling. It's just developing this resolve. And I think that the development of the resolve itself weakens them. We can develop this element of the general. Oh, what do you think of that? Do you think that the element itself, the conviction, the resolve itself, does actually weaken the emotions we're trying to dissolve?
Yeah, probably because it takes a certain amount of self-awareness. Just to begin to recognize when it arises.
And that awareness and that determination to actually counter it, that's basically the material necessary to counter it. That's all there is. That in itself counters it. We can develop this element of the general stance by giving attentive, compassionate consideration to the destructive effects these emotions have upon the lives of ourselves and those around us. So this is analytical meditation. This is the method by which we go about this is sitting and considering. Or sitting, we can do it while we're walking, we can do it anytime. But I don't think that we can expect to counter these emotions when we are overtaken by them. I think that at that point, it's too late. We have to consider these things before we're overwhelmed by them. We can develop this element of the general stance by giving attentive, compassionate consideration to the destructive effects these emotions have upon the lives of ourselves and those around us. We can reflect on the fact that such emotions, hatred and greed, for example, not only are the sources of many of our personal problems, but also are the ultimate sources of many of our collective problems, such as war, poverty, and environmental degradation. So when we can reflect on the fact that these emotions are the ultimate sources of our collective problems, this reflection is, as I say, analytical meditation. It's something that we have to actually do. We have to sit and reflect. Now, of course, you can do it by reading and rereading and thinking about it and reading, but it won't happen as a result of just thinking about this once. It's something that we have to work on. Simply adopting a stance of opposition towards our destructive emotions will have an immediate influence by giving us a sense of caution, which is a critical defense when such powerful emotions strike us. So it is very important to give careful consideration to the negative impact each of our most persistent destructive tendencies. Okay? Any comments? If our mind is lost, even for a short time, to an emotion as destructive as hatred, we may say and do terrible things. The damage created by one moment of intense hatred can be devastating. In Buddhism, the human mind is often compared to a wild elephant. As some farmers know well, when an elephant is agitated, it can wreak great destruction. But an unruly, agitated human mind, given to fits of rage, malice, obsessive craving, jealousy, or arrogance, can wreak even more destruction than a rampaging elephant, and can ruin lives. So this elephant, when the Tibetans first went to live, the Indian government gave the Tibetans land in the south of India, and the Tibetans had come from Tibet. They didn't know anything about the local environment, and they started planting their fields, and they didn't have tractors to pull the what are they called, the plows, and they would three strong monks would pull the plow, and then the little monks would hold the plow and do the plowing. And this is how they initially plowed the land. And they would plow the lands, and then in Tibet, monks did not do any agricultural work. In our vows, we are not meant to go into the fields and work, and it's not out of laziness. When you do agricultural work, there are all these insects and worms and whatever that are destroyed, that are killed in the process, and so as part of our commitment to refrain from killing, we're not meant to engage in agricultural work. Anyway, the monks had to survive, and so they had to put those rules aside, and they would plant their lands, their fields, and then the wild elephants would come and destroy everything. And the monks would go out, and they had no idea how to deal with these wild elephants. So they would take all the pots and pans from the kitchen of the monastery and go and make as much noise as they could to try. Now, elephants aren't put off by noise, and so the elephants would come, and some of the monks and some of the lay people were killed by the elephants, and the elephants have a memory too. They would come back and they would pick off those who had been particularly mean to them. So within the monasteries, among the elder monks, there are these memories of the dealing with the wild elephants. So those stories are pretty terrible, but anger can cause us far more destruction, is what is being said here. Fits of rage, malice, obsessive craving, jealousy, arrogance. So to counter these tremendously powerful destructive emotions we all have within us, we need to develop very strong enthusiasm and determination for the task. This enthusiasm will come in large part from considering the negative impacts of those emotions. In addition to being powerfully destructive in moments of intense feeling, they can also have insidious, corrosive effects on our inner well-being. Gradually and surely, they undermine our inner peace, deprive us of mental freedom, and hinder the expression of our empathetic nature, the source of our greatest happiness. So, this is not just like in the book telling us these things. These are things that we have to sit and think about. We have to work at developing within us this recognition of the really negative quality of anger, malice, craving, jealousy, arrogance. We have to really see these as being the source of our own unhappiness, being the source of the unhappiness around us if we are overtaken by these. In fact, we could even say that all the violence and destruction in the world are the result of hatred. The damaging consequences of hatred can be observed at individual, family, and global levels. So this is all the meat, the material that we have to consider to cultivate a determination to work at countering these afflictive emotions within us. We're not judging others. We're not going around telling other people. I mean, I think I shared with you here, as a little boy, I was not allowed to hate. My father would not permit me to hate, and I resented this. And, on one level, you cannot say to someone, you cannot hate. I mean, this was a loving father trying to bring up his child to not engage in hatred. And I now appreciate it. But this working at countering hatred is something that we have to do ourselves. We can't depend on someone to come along and say, do not hate. So I encourage people to contemplate the destructive nature of such emotions on a regular basis. This is a subject to which I return in chapter 11, where I describe some simple mental training practices which can be helpful as a means to develop conviction about the need to overcome such emotions and as a means to training the mind. So it's interesting that you have the two parts of this. You have the conviction and the means. So the development of that conviction is as important as the development of, or the application of the means. Actually, I think that the development of that conviction is a means, is the means. So, how old are your children now? Oh,
They're grown-ups.
you can't do anything about them.
Too late. They're good.
Okay, so the mind training practices that we find in Buddhism. I mean, we're meant to be discussing this as sort of secular ethics, not specifically connected to or related to Buddhism. And though we begin the session by reciting these Buddhist prayers, this book is really His Holiness's attempt to introduce practices to bring about happiness within someone, to bring about some kind of control over the emotions that cause one to suffer. They're derived to a great extent from mind training exercises, mind training practices, lojong in Tibetan. And I find it quite extraordinary that if we really analyze mind training, it is free of any kind of religiosity. It is basic common sense practice for becoming a happier person, creating a happier world around one. And that's what's being taught here. So, if our mind is lost, even for a short... Oh no, we've done that. Oh. Gosh. So understanding the causes of affliction. You have it too? Oh. Okay. Having developed a strong resolve to tackle our destructive emotions, we can then reflect upon their causes. Where do these disturbing emotions come from? Well, we may respond they come from the world we live in. Well, where do you think they come from? Let's discuss this.
Childhood, our surroundings, education, our family, society.
Mm-hmm. Others. You're aiming. You're pointing your finger.
Well, it starts there. When you're learning as you're growing up, it starts. I believe I'm a therapist, so I help people with these things, and we examine their childhood, their family of origin, their education, and then they can begin to transform it if they want to.
Any other ideas of where it could come from?
Well, if you have little kids playing together, 5 and 4, 5 and 6, and the bigger one takes away all the blocks from the smaller one, they're going to be outraged, and that's not that. I mean, that's just their way of interaction. That's not something that's inculcated into them from from birth. This is it's just a group dynamic that seems to come up around these.
You have anything to say on this?
They don't really hold on to their feelings, I have to say. The next day, they'll be hugging each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the next time.
Kids are kids.
That's not, that doesn't have to do with upbringing, it just has to do with being kids.
Yeah. That's why some of the practitioners are saying that we want to have like a behavior like with kids. You just say that being naive, but then they're kind of like having their true feelings, and friends are friends. They can fight, but then they still
That's to try and make it pseudoscientific to description of this. The emotion, whatever it is, the anger, the hate, it's like, is a potential. That it's not necessarily, it can be triggered by something that someone does or something that someone says. But that other person is not really the source. And that the potential for this anger pre-exists in the human psychology. Is the way I look at it.
So, when we talk about karma, when we talk about karma in the sense of past actions, when we talk about, when we consider that our present emotions are the result of our having indulged these emotions in the past, then we can't really put the blame on our environment, our upbringing. We, in the past, have actually engaged in these, indulged them in ways that cause us to be overwhelmed by them now. And I think it's helpful to assume responsibility, because in a sense the assumption of responsibility enables us to accept the notion that we can do something about it. We did this, and our efforts can bring about. But that's from a Buddhist point of view. I think we have to mix in the environmental, the childhood. But those of you who've had a few children, they're all different. Each one has his own. How many do you have? And you've had lots.
She still does.
You know that every little child, brother, sister, whatever, they're all different, right? I haven't had any.
Another way of saying kind of what you're saying too is that it was like, it seems like it's like endless, from a Buddhist perspective, it's many lifetimes, not just this lifetime, of self-seeking, of like doing things with a self-oriented mindset. And I think that for me, that's the challenge. And that's why setting the motivation is the key thing what you're talking about.
So when you say many, I'll go so far as to say infinite.
I try to get my head around that. So, but I mean, I think that's a challenge, because you could have this motivation in this class, but then you go out into life, I mean, I was just on vacation, we were visiting a friend who was doing certain things at certain points that was annoying me. And I thought he was being a bit kind of, a little bit, just doing things that I didn't think were very nice or whatever. But then, like, periodically I remember he's having these health problems where like he's having he could have like ALS or something. So then I remember like, oh yeah, I need to cut this guy some slack. Like, he's getting tests and like he's probably freaking out, right? But then an hour later, he does X, Y, Z, and I'm annoyed again because it's just habit. You know what I mean? It's habit to not be. So that's the challenge, I think. And I think what this book and other teachings are so great is that it's very practical. It's like to set your motivation in the morning, which of course I sometimes forget to do. So you get, what I'm saying. Oh yeah, Matthew.
So, we reflect deeply, however, we discover that the real troublemaker is within us. Our true enemies are our own destructive tendencies. For it is the external conditions, if the external condition is the real source of our trouble, it follows that if, say, 10 people are confronted with the same external situation, each of them should encounter the same difficulty when faced with the external condition. This, we know, is not the case. The way we react emotionally to any given situation depends to a large extent on our own outlook, our own attitude, and our own emotional habits. As part of learning to gain a measure of control over our emotions, as a step towards developing a calm mind, it is important that we take a measured and, above all, realistic approach to dealing with the world and the problems we face. Take anger, for example. Is getting angry really a helpful response? If we have a hostile neighbor who constantly provokes us, does getting angry do anything to remedy the situation? What is more, if we allow anger and resentment to fester, they will gradually wear us down, affecting our moods, our sleep, even our appetite. And if this happens, our hostile neighbor really will have won some kind of victory. This is the way of a foolish person, for it is a kind of self-torture. If in contrast, and it's very useful to think of that. If when we get aggravated by someone and we feel more and more angry, if we can think that by indulging this anger, by really feeling this, we are miserable, that's helpful. Of course, it's hard to, as you were saying, it's hard to deal with people when they are sort of provoking or acting in a way that antagonizes. But that's the time that we really have to consider these things. If, in contrast, we can sustain some tranquility of mind, maintain our composure, and carry on with our normal lives, then we will be much better equipped to determine the most effective course of action for dealing with such a situation. This is very, I must say that we often read about the fact that when we have to deal with some difficult situation, some provocation, instead of answering right away, if we take the time to consider it and consider the options by which we can retaliate, we can be far more effective in retaliating than we would be by doing so instinctually. Just if you're I think that one of the things I learned from Chungla Rinpoche was, when dealing with problems, take a deep breath, think about it, and then try to figure out the best way to behave, rather than that immediate. The truth is that when we are agitated, we're not much good at anything. Even hitting a nail straight can be problematic. That's a good place to stop, I would say. So this is, yes, short-term hedonistic desires versus long-term happiness through cultivation of virtue. Thanks. Very helpful discussion. So we've been asked to pray for Anne Glick, Aradhana's uncle Sri Krishna Pillai, and Dr. Joshua Berger. Okay, we shall recite the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge can be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of Nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He's completely liberated from suffering. He's completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He's not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He's completely cut the knots. He's completely liberated from extreme torment. He's liberated from craving. He's crossed over the river. He's perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the Bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously, they are worthy of veneration. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of the protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue. I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure are the cause of freedom and compassion. Virtue is liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. To the Buddha, the leader, I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruition is possible. May they be born in we read the 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supreme and dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a destructive emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take my loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering upon others. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the eight worldly concerns, and may understanding all phenomena like illusions be released from the bondage of attachment. Now the prayer for the swift return of Ratu Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victories gathered in a drop, so refuge manifest in the form of one wearing sacred robes. Please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, publishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech, and the victors of those teachings, spreading them to the end by means of explanation and practice. The holy commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you to secret existence ends, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of your Manakaya to swiftly return to the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta, drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and the wish-fulfillment jewel. Return as the glory of the memory. Magnificent true Mahakala Karma Yama and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of the Dharma protectors. May you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. So, on Wednesday we will meet in New Jersey, 502 North Ridgewood Road, South Orange, New Jersey, at 7 o'clock in the evening.